People's perception of light have changed many times over the ages, and now I'm going to show you in what ways in this video. The first person to make a discovery regarding light was Lucerius, an ancient Greek philosopher who had the epiphany that light was composed of atoms that were shoved from the sun. Unfortunately for him, and science in general, someone who was smart for his time, stupid, Empedocles, had already convinced everyone everything was composed of 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water, noticeably lacking our hero light. So, he said light was the next best thing on his list, fire, but not that we detected fire, that fire was in the centre of everyone's eyes. I like to think of this theory as little people constantly flowing out your eyes at all times, and when they hit something they return back with their arms high, saying, "I have hit something to the X angle and Y far away," and when the eye goes, "Alright," and then mark it on that moment's picture. Of course, this theory doesn't take into account darkness, but he didn't care, and spent time pondering it after he had already infected everyone else's minds with his falsities. But whose theory won the battle of popularity? The dumb, stupid Empedocles with his so-called emission theory, or the well thought out and accurate to reality Lucerius with his correct theory? Well, unfortunately, as the 4 elements theory was already well established, and people couldn't be bothered to add a 5th element, light, to the list, even if they did, the theory would be still running anyways. For the next 1,000 years, emission theory was the most widely accepted one. Now it's time to talk about the Islamic Golden Age, in which our friend Al-Hatham dismissed Empedocles' previous nonsense. His main line of reasoning laid with a pinhole camera that wouldn't work with the emission theory, as how would 2 little people be seeing the same thing at the same time? Hint, they couldn't, and the bad, wrong, and horrible emission theory was never heard of again. Now, even after that debate was settled, it took another 600 years for news of the emission theory's defeat to reach Europe, and notably, 2 very smart people, Isaac Newton and Christian Huygens. In the early 16th century, Isaac famously split white light into colours using a prism, and then, to quell any and all disbelief, changed it back again using another prism, proving light was composed of separate particles of different colour that diffracted differently. Then there was the other, less renowned but still popular, Christian Huygens. He redid Newton's experiments and realised a wave propagating perpendicularly to the direction of travel would work a lot better, as it would be affected by ordinary diffraction. "Hold on, I just proved light was composed of particles," said Newton. "Nope, pretty sure I'm right," said Christian and his mates. And so the 200-year light war started. Was it a particle, or was it a wave? Now, I call it the 200-year light war because it took until 1817 for anyone to actually start caring. The people who dredged up this 200-year-old mystery seem to be heavily in agreement with Christian and his wave theory. 2 people who supported him by doing their own experiments separately were Thomas Young and Hippolyte Fizeau. Thomas Young did his famous double split experiment, by which he put monochromatic, coherent light through 2 very small slits that were very close together, and sought dark and light fringes, which is something that would only happen if light were a wave. Hippolyte Fizeau measured the speed of light using an ingenious interferometer setup, and the fact that speed of light was much higher than he expected supported Fresnel's theory, which by proxy supported Christian's wave theory. But on the other side of the ring, we had James Clerk Maxwell, who used Newton's theory to create the first ever colour camera that used triadic colour theory, the fact that there were 3 primary colours, to prove light was composed of a set amount of monochromatic elements. Now it was time for the hero of the war to step up, the man who would finally settle the waves versus particles debate, and solve this conundrum once and for all. That man was Albert Einstein. And how did he do this? How did this man prove what many men had spent their entire lives discussing? He said there was particle duality. In other words, he said that it was both. Light was photons and waves. He did this by realizing that the photoelectric effect, the fact that light affects matter even though it is massless, could only be explained if light was a particle. But Young's double slit could only be explained if light was a wave, so both sides of the war were right after all. This is one of the few arguments that both sides came out on top. And if that isn't a happy ending, I don't know what is.